We graduated 20 kids this year. We had, I think, 17 walk, something of that nature. And one of them happened to be my niece. So some executives from Berrien Springs were there. So as my niece walked across the stage, now mind you, I'm the MC, I'm talking, I have a lot to say that night. And she walked across stage, got her diploma, and I'm like, oh, geez, I went like that. And then we have a little ceremony. It's called a rose ceremony. And we give the students a rose, and then they go out into the crowd and hand the rose to someone who meant the most to them or encouraged them or helped them get their diploma. She walked right up to me and handed me the rose. I'm going to cry now. She handed me the rose, and then it was over. I'm like, oh, how am I going to talk? I'm white. Yeah. And I gave up. I gave her a hug and a kiss, and I sat down and finished. I had to get back up, so I was getting myself together. Well, in the meanwhile, the administrator reached over to my boss, and he said, what is Paul doing kissing students? Right in front of people. And he's like, no, that's his niece. Oh, okay, all right, we're good.
Welcome to another episode of Small Town Grit. I'm your host, Corey Haubs, and I have Mr. Paul Whitney with me today. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
And people are probably wondering why Paul Whitney is in our showroom, or our, what do we call this place? Studio. Our studio today. You are the branch manager of Link Learning, and you are right downtown beautiful Vasser. What is Link Learning?
Oh, thank you. So first of all, I've watched a lot of your episodes, and I just love the fact that you bring Vasser business and Vasser folks, and not all Vasser, I get that, but what you've done, I would like to talk about that a little bit today.
Oh, we can
just how you tied in all of our business and how we all work together and how it all comes together. So great job with that. So Link Learning is an online virtual school, high school for students aged 14 to 21. It's an opportunity for kids to get an education and a diploma. It's a high school diploma. We're affiliated through Berrien Springs High School. And what it gives is just an additional opportunity for kids that don't do well or for whatever reason, traditional school's not working for them. So originally it was set up about 14 years ago in Greenville, Michigan. Our first center was in Greenville. And it was just a handful of kids, and it was an opportunity for Berrien Springs to reach out for some of the kids that maybe 19, 20, 21 that just didn't finish that high school diploma and they want to. And so it was online virtual learning way before it was cool to do it, and way before COVID. So it gave us an opportunity to make some mistakes and figure out what works best. So here we are 14 years later. There's 16 centers in Michigan. It went from, and I don't know the exact number, but let's say a handful to 10 students to over 2,600 students today. We graduated a little over 600, I think it was 630 students last year alone through those 16 centers. And they're located throughout all of Michigan. So 3 in the UP, 3 over in Grand Rapids, and then Vasser's the furthest east, the newest center, and just Vasser alone. So last year at this time, we opened, let me just start there. We opened in January of 23 with, I think, 15 students. Last year at this time, we got up to 49, 50 students, and today we're at 120 students. So it's increasing in numbers. It's a great, as soon as folks hear it, it's like, okay, this is what my child needs, or this is what a 19-year-old says, hey, this is that opportunity I was looking for. So we're not the only show in town. There's other virtual schools, and what we provide is something a little bit different, which I'm excited to talk about today too, but it helps students learn at their pace and their level. So we're able to provide all the IEP services, individualized educational plans, special education services, all the way to students who are straight A students that want to graduate at 16, which that happens too. So, and it's every student in between. We do find that a lot of our students might have some anxiety issues, or maybe they were bullied, or maybe there's just not a great fit in a traditional school for whatever reason. And again, some of our other students are excel at education, but yet they just aren't getting there fast enough. So of last year, so a great example is last year, the Vasser Center graduated 20 students. And of those 20 students, more than half of them are now in college. And of the 2 that are in college that I want to talk about specifically, they were 16 years old when they graduated. They're now 17, and they're already in college and moving on. They have goals. They set those goals, and that's what we all like to see is kids take over their education, and then they show us what goals, and they complete those goals.
Thank you to our sponsors. IRD Homes, Mid-Michigan's top contractor, bringing new builds and renovations to life. Timber Oaks. Timber Oaks offers customized lawn and landscape solutions and is a premier Mid-Michigan lawn care company. Link Excavation, your Mid-Michigan excavating experts serving Bay, Tuscola, Saginaw, Huron, and Genesee counties.
So enrollment, you asked that question. So enrollment, really, it goes on all year round. So most, again, traditional schools, you have enrollment periods at the beginning of the school year and toward the end of the school year. We enroll kids. I say kids. I'm old. So students, I should say. We enroll students year round. There are some times that we take a pause in between semesters maybe, or during count day. Every school has count day. We're part of that too. So we'll pause just from, state tests and that kind of thing. But outside of that, we enroll kids all the time. Right now is a busy time of the year. It's the start of a new semester for all Michigan schools. So what we find is kids go back to school and like, oh man, I really don't like this school, or I'm afraid to go in. I had some issues with old girlfriend, boyfriend. But this gives them that opportunity now to excel and do great. And they can do it from home. Or we have the downtown center. So the kids who do come to the center, generally speaking, live nearby. But we do have some students from Caro, from Frankenmuth, who come on a regular, Saginaw, whose parents may work through Vasser or in Vasser. So they just they tag a ride with their parents, stop down the center for a few hours, get some work done, and then move on from there.
Yeah, so those who don't know, we recently enrolled our youngest son, Reese, in Link Learning last week. I think we had orientation. So transfer process went good. He was doing online through Vasser. They discontinued that program, and then we merged over there. And you're a little different than what the program at Vasser was doing. He had 4 or 5 classes he was doing at the same time, but you like the program of specializing in just one class at a time, focus on that, accomplish that, and then get another class. Is that correct?
Right. So it's kind of a linear approach. And it does, what we found from the students, they love it, first of all. They can spend their energy and time on that one class, master that, and move on to their next class. They're taking all the same classes you would take at a traditional school. And what Link Learning and other virtual schools do for public schools, private schools, whatever, is give them an opportunity to meet the needs of students that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So yes, what distinguishes Link Learning a little bit differently, maybe from some other virtual schools, is the fact that we take one class at a time. Each class should take about a month to complete. But that energizes students too. So some of them take advantage of that and say, well, I want to finish this in 3 weeks. Okay, we'll set a goal. We'll do that in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. What we saw with some of our graduates last year, my niece included, I'm going to talk about Madison. Hi, Madison. She and some others got down to the very end and thought, well, I'd like to graduate, I'd like to walk across the stage, but I have 4 classes to finish in the next 5 weeks. They did it. And so I don't recommend any student doing that, because at the end of that month, they were just jelly.
Right.
Their brains are tired. But the opportunity is there for them to do that.
Yeah, so I think you have to do roughly about 5% roughly a day to...
So what that looks like, yeah, you remember. That's very good.
Yeah.
So we break it down to that a student should be able to finish a class, 25% of that class a week. That's a minimum to get that class done in a month,
right.
About 25%. So if you break it down to Monday through Friday or 5 days a week, it's 5% a day. Now, 5% a day is a much more manageable number in a student's brain than you need to finish one class per month. When you break it down to a daily activity or how many hours, well, the first question I get, how many hours does that take to do 5% of a day? Well, I don't know. Every student's a little different. But if you put in 3 to 4 hours a day, you're going to be able to successfully complete that class in a month without without much trouble.
Yeah, we're trying to establish the 10% rule in our Hobby Sugar household.
That's all right. So
it's not going very well.
Well, there's some students who self-impose a 10% or a 15%. There's some students that have an aggressive plan, mainly because some of them are trying to catch up. So they might be 17, 18, 19, and a freshman, a true freshman, or maybe a sophomore. And in that case, they're like, I have some work to do. And at the same time, we have some students that are parents and have 3 children and a job. And the only time they can do their work is on the weekends. So a couple of students in particular, that's when they work, is Saturday and Sunday on their school assignments. And we don't bug them during the week because we know they're going to be busy. They have children, they have life. But that brings up another thing that's a little bit different with Link Learning is some virtual schools that I'm aware of anyway, not all of them, but they have day hours, 8 to 4, or 8 to 3 or whatever. And even our center is only open from 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. But we have night hours. And in my opinion, and I think everyone's opinion, if a student wants to work on a Sunday afternoon and they need a little help, we're going to give it to them. I mean, that's amazing. Or work through the summertime. If they want to work through the summer, heck yeah, we're going to give you some support and help you out. So we're available. Now, we're human. We sleep. We have lives, and we do things. So we're not 100% available, but we do have hours. And the students get to learn us a little bit, and we get to learn their study habits. So as a result, they know when they can call, when they can't call.
Yeah. And the good thing about Link Learning is, it's not traditional times. Like you said, 8 to 3. If somebody is not a morning person and they get a little late start, they can go into the afternoon there. So, or in the evening, if it's...
Right. So what we do offer, again, is the center itself where kids come in, students, I should say, can come in. And, it is about learning. It is about getting assignments done and tests and classes. But we also have fun. I'd like to cook, for instance, or some of the kids might want to share something with the rest. So we'll throw a party.
Yeah, Taco Tuesday even talked about doing some field trips. And
field trips is another thing. So we have a field trip coming up soon. So some examples of field trips: we went to the Detroit Zoo, the Henry Ford Museum, some Loons baseball games. I know this sounds terrible, but we're renting out a bar in Elma. Now, this bar, let me just say this much, is it's a gaming bar. So the whole place, 100-inch screens, and just every gaming system that's out there, ever known to man, is in this particular place. So we rented out the whole place. We're going to serve lunch, and kids are going to have an all-day fun fest gaming. And so then that sparked a new interest, which is esports. So esports is it's a thing. 2, it's very popular and becoming more and more popular. So much so that universities are recruiting kids, and they give out scholarships too. Yes, and so there are scouts at Elma College that want to check out kids, and so our goal is to put together an esports team, and that's awesome. That's something new. We haven't done that yet, but we have some folks dedicated to that. We're real excited about that.
Yeah. So you guys are right downtown Vasser. I'm sure that's part of a marketing plan and somewhat as well. I'm sure that most of these online locations are in downtown environments.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So even in the bigger towns, Grand Rapids, it's not necessarily in the downtown part of Grand Rapids, but it's in a busy area. It's visible. We did look at several buildings in Vasser here. And that the one we're in now presented itself, and it was perfect. Literally, it's right across from the movie theater. But unfortunately, already we've outgrown it. So we're at a point now where we're ready to move, and we're working with an investor and a builder, and we're going to move hopefully soon. I can't give you a date, nor do I want to give a date. But we'll be moving to what was traditionally the hotel in Vasser here, which was a bar sometimes, a restaurant. It was Betty Lou's restaurant. It was the Riverside Grill. So yeah, that's our next adventure, is moving into that building. We'll be neighbors.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So what geographic radius do you cover? Is there a radius for, or at least your branch?
There is. So our closest center to Vasser is Merrill. So Merrill is Saginaw kind of splits Merrill and Vasser in terms of location. So right now our outreach to students is anything east of Vasser. We had a student who graduated last year from Port Huron, for instance. Emily City, we have some students. Lapeer, it has a great presence. So if you look at the thumb, for instance, that thumb is pretty much our district or area that we capture students, up to Saginaw, Bay City, Flint, Mount Morris. So all of our thumb area, and then east, and then we share some of the Saginaw students with Merrill.
Okay. So then they can just go to the website or call Link Learning and then find a branch.
Yeah, there's a website, linklearning.org, and it explains the program much better than I, but it explains what it's all about. It has areas for parents to ask questions, students, but you can also enroll there too. Now, all of that enrollment information comes directly to the center itself, or you can call the center. I'm going to throw the phone number out there. It's 989-882-9106. Beautiful. Thank you. So professional. So professional. In any event, you can call directly to the center because we'll get those calls and emails anyway.
Anything else about Link Learning before we go into some past of Paul Whitney's life in Metropolis of Vassar?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to.
Did you guys ever call it Metropolis of Vassar back in the day, or is that just a trend
maybe
now?
at a tire fire or something? I don't know if that's. Yeah, Metropolis of Vassar. Yeah, just not Millington, is all we said.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Millington. So with Link, so our goal this year is to, our goal right off the bat was to, in Vassar anyway, to get to at least 100 students. Well, we're surpassed that.
Right.
That's not, so our first count day is October 2nd this year. All schools in Michigan have to deal with this count day stuff. And I would anticipate we'll definitely be by 120, 125 by then. So it's not just about numbers, though. It's about a story behind every one of those numbers. And so our executive director and some other administrators from Berrien Springs came to the center, and we got talking, and we have a partnership with Vassar Public Schools. So every district that Link Learning is in has a partnership with that local school district. We don't advertise at Vassar schools. We don't pull students from our partners, but we have an agreement with them that we're here to support, and we're here to help. So a few times a year, our administrators will come in and talk to the superintendent or whomever. And there's always a story behind the story. So we love talking about kids and their animals or their success stories or their, a student came in, he was 16, he had 1 credit in high school, and he finished his entire high school career in 13 months. He set a goal, and in day 1, I remember looking at him, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to graduate next year at this time." I said, "Well, okay. What's some other plans we can?" And so we looked at some other things. He's like, "No. I'm going to finish because I'm going to be in college when I turn 7, his birthday." And sure enough, he did it. And we had him be our speaker during graduation. He did an awesome job, Jamarcus. And but there's a lot of stories like that. That kids overcame, again, I say that, students overcome such, some obstacles in life, and yet they finish that high school career. So it's just a grin. I promised, I got one little story to tell about graduation too. So we graduated 20 kids this year. We had, I think, 17 walk, something of that nature. And one of them happened to be my niece. So some executives from Berrien Springs were there. We even had a senator, Senator Daley was there, and he gave out some special awards to students. That was pretty cool. So as my niece walked across the stage, now mind you, I'm the MC, I'm talking, I have a lot to say that night. And she walked across stage, got her diploma, and I'm like, oh, geez, I went like that. And then we have a little ceremony. It's called a rose ceremony. And we give the students a rose, and then they go out into the crowd and hand the rose to someone who meant the most to them or encouraged them or helped them get their diploma. She walked right up to me and handed me the rose. I'm going to cry now. She handed me the rose, and then it was over. I'm like, oh, how am I going to talk? I'm white. Yeah. And I gave up. I gave her a hug and a kiss, and I sat down and finished. I had to get back up, so I was getting myself together. Well, in the meanwhile, the administrator reached over to my boss, and he said, what is Paul doing kissing students? Right in front of people. And he's like, no, that's his niece. Oh, okay, all right, we're good. But anyway, it was just, it's a great moment. Every graduation is, every high school, every graduation, every college, every level. It's just amazing to see your child grow and succeed, and everybody wants to be happy about that.
Yeah, you have 120 kids.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything you're community oriented. Link Learning I know is involved in the community when there's things coming up, and one thing downtown, there's always kind of something going on, an event or and that. So you guys are definitely involved in that. So, but let's talk back up a little bit about the old days here. Your family has big traditions in town here. The biggest one that I know of is, I'm not originally from here, is the Petunia planting. And that last year was the last year of Petunia planting.
Yeah. It's fizzling. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Right? So how did you guys get involved in the Petunia planting, and what other community events that you've been involved in? I know you're on some other boards or have been, the EDC and DDA and such.
This is an easy answer. My folks, Chuck and Nancy Whitney, they were very involved in the community. And for lack of better terms, they pounded that into our heads that you will give back to your community, you get and participate, you coach, you actively be part of what's happening around you. So I came from a very strong, religious, community-oriented family. And it started with my dad teaching here at Vasser for 30 plus years. He drove school bus for 30 plus years, and then he also taught night school for 30 plus years. So he was constantly working. But another aspect is he grew up on a huge dairy farm. So he was a dairy farmer in Pennsylvania, and he brought that farming right here in Vasser. So even though we lived in the city limits, we had 11 or 12 acres that we farmed, and we produced vegetables. So I watched one of your shows with the vegetable. Man, did that bring back memories of just having a pile of vegetables that we sold. So we had a fruit market, we had a stand, and it was Whitney's Produce, and it was great. So that gave us an understanding of hard work. Two, it gave us an understanding of how we participate in our community. Then my dad joined the council in Vasser, was the mayor in Vasser. My mom was involved with events and different community organizations, both of them with Little League. I was dragged to so many meetings as a kid. It was just kind of a ground right in there that we're going to do this. So back in 1976, some of the folks that remember back in 1976, in front of City Hall, right now there's a parking lot, handicap spots and some other spots. But right there in a good old Vasser, we had a big, huge flower bed that we spelled the word Vasser. When I say we, it was my dad. He did all the work. So it was railroad ties built up. It was beautiful. It said, so as you enter into Vasser on South M15, or wherever you came from, that 5-point area there, you could see spelled out beautiful flowers, Vasser. And then we started planting a little more petunias in front of City Hall. And then for a couple of years, my folks asked some neighbors up and down the hill on M15, hey, can we plant some petunias there? And it took them a while to get some permissions. It took a while to get the city involved. It took a while to dig up all that, the grass and sod. That's a lot of hard back-breaking work. Well, thankfully, he had a bunch of kids that could help out with that. So we all got dragged up there, and we did a lot of work. Mind you, my dad did most of it and showed us the way, but we all at some point got involved with getting our hands dirty and planting petunias in town. So then it exploded. So then there was a committee, some wonderful ladies, and they had been on for 30 plus years. And every year they would get volunteers from churches and community groups. And man, if you just walk by them, they were like, hey, come here on this day, you're going to come help plant petunias. You're going to pick some weeds. You're going to water your flowers. And here's some. But they did it in such a loving way. And I just love all of them. They've all since retired from the Petunia committee. But boy, it was because of them and my parents that initial push to do something great for Vasser. So what it did is we also have some state recognition. I don't know if you're aware of this or not.
I did not know that.
Vasser, Keep Vassar Beautiful Committee was awarded, I'm going to screw it up now, doggone it, but it's from the state of Michigan and a legislator that they've set aside a day because of how beautiful it was. And you know what? I really enjoy listening to truckers or anyone make comments like, man, I just love Vasser. When I come in, you see all the petunias up and down M15 and the hill. And So what I think has happened over the course of the last few years is a couple of things. So COVID hit, that didn't help.
No.
People didn't know if they could stand next to each other and plant petunias. We weren't sure. We're wearing masks outside. What are we doing? I don't know. We just didn't know. And it hit in 2020 in May. That was fresh. That was we just didn't know what to do with that. So that was part of the decline. Another part of the decline is community involvement has changed over the years. So there's some parts of community groups that are heavier than others, and right now it's not so much in the petunia group. Now, that's not to say we haven't stopped planting petunias. We still plant petunias. We still have a fund. We have some monies we raised, and we used those this year to all of our welcome signs in Vasser. We planted some areas downtown in front of City Hall. So it's still active. I'm not saying it's done because there's a few of us that just can't let that go, and we want to see that. So somehow or another, we'll keep it alive. We have some monies that we're still working with. So it just might not be as large as it used to be.
And that's all right. And we've talked about that too, is like, you can't do the big scheme, right? And scalability and, how many volunteers you have and community involvement.
Sure.
And then, we deal with this a lot on our projects with the DDA and Parks and Recs or whatever it might be. It's like the maintain, they look beautiful when you put them in.
Yeah.
But that's 20 weeks or 30 weeks that you got to maintain them, water them, weed them, maintain them.
You raise a good point. There was a time, a long time, many, many years, we put cocoa bean mulch down with the petunia. So not only would you have the nice looking petunias, but you have this cocoa bean mulch that we'd put down. And it was, I don't know, a light brown. It was just a beautiful color. And it has smells, and it was just great. But with that comes maintenance. And what kind of maintenance? About every 3 years, since all that mulch would not disintegrate, but break down, become even more mulch, you would have humps of dirt over the sidewalk and over the curb, so much so that we had to take that dirt out. And it became a powdery, and then the flowers dried out. And so every 3 years, it took a lot of backs, a lot of hard work, tractors and trailers. And 2 weeks it took us to take all of that by hand, all of the dirt from every area. We had to take it down about 8 to 10 inches and then use the mulch and the flowers. In about 3 years, you do the whole thing all over again. Well, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And we did have that at that time. We had some we had a great relationship with Wolverine Human Services, and we had some kids come up and help. So that helped a lot too, but it did take the help of football teams and cheerleader teams and Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups. And it takes a lot to maintain something like that.
Well, we do appreciate it, and it does look beautiful. I know the DDA has kind of stepped up a little bit when you did the flowers downtown.
Man, does that look great. And are we hearing a lot of, so we have families come in from all over, the Thumb, Saginaw, Bay City, you name it, and that they definitely notice that, and they make comments about that, like, wow, that looks beautiful downtown here. So,
that's great.
Yeah, we're able to tell that story, too, from the DDA perspective.
Yeah, we actually plan on doing a little fall. We're going to swap the flowers out and then put mums in. And so that hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're going to transition that for fall.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Great idea.
So DDA is really involved in trying to spruce up the downtown as well. So one thing I didn't know about you is you were a police officer at one time in your life.
Yeah, well, 33 years of my life.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was like your big background. I thought you were just like like a sub, like we need somebody to run the night beat. Let's call Paul. Let's call Paul.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. So 1988, I'll tell you, it was June of 1988. I was a reserve officer. Now, reserve means that you don't have arrest powers. It means that you're learning this trade. Maybe you do want to do it, maybe you don't. I was a young person. And so my first shift, now I worked with some guys who started their police career in the 60s. So that was the mindset I was first working with. This was before the academy, before anything. I got into a car with a bunch of guys who really didn't go to the academy. They were given some keys and a gun and said, don't screw this up. So when I, 20 years later, fast forward, here's this young idiot who now puts on the uniform, sits in the passenger seat. They're saying, don't touch anything, don't look at me, don't ask me any questions, just sit there. And I mean that really.
Right.
So you had to like filter through, like, okay, wow, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Am I hearing what I'm hearing? Yes, I am. So it was a great learning experience. So when I did go to the academy about a year and a half later, I learned some laws, and I've learned some civil rights and some cool things like that. So then I worked. When was the first Gulf War? Was that 90 or 91? I don't remember. I think, whenever the first Gulf War was, that's when I went to the academy, and we lost a few that had, active duty. They got pulled up, or they were reservists and they got pulled up. So we lost a few from the academy. So I worked part-time in Vasser since then. My goal in life was to I thought I'd be a state police officer. And I even I took the test twice. I scored very high, but it wasn't, the timing wasn't, like we talked about earlier, the timing wasn't right. So I come to the realization, like, maybe I should think about another career even. So I did. And this is the other thing I wanted to tie in about what you're doing here. So I worked at Central ShopRite, and I think most of us at some point.
Everybody's finished. I got to go work there with Jim one day.
You're going to have to pull a shift there or something. But anyway, I worked at Central ShopRite through high school, through part of my college, and even when I went through the academy. And so, yes, that's I think a rite of passage. You have to spend some time in ShopRite, right, bagging some groceries.
Jim Kramer,
stocking some
shelves. You got to give me a shift. Yeah, one shift.
Jim Hayes.
I want to work with Jim Kramer. I want to be.
Oh, you want Jim Kramer to call? Yeah. That's even better.
Yeah, I love it. I want to bag his groceries.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's what I like about Jim Kramer too. Well, again, you did so Jim Kramer, we all listen to Jim.
Yeah.
ShopRite, we all go shop there. We work there. We know someone that works there. Sarah at the tattoo shop. Great. She's done my tattoos too. There was a time in a day back when I was a little youngster, you would buy your clothes in Vasser, you'd buy your carpet in Vasser, you'd buy your lumber, you'd buy your car, you'd buy, everything was right here in downtown.
Yeah.
We can still do that, like with eyeglasses, Gene, that was awesome. So we still do that. And what you're doing is bringing back that feeling of, hey man, everything's right here.
It is, yeah.
Maybe not the clothes, but you can still buy stuff at next door at Little Wonders. There's clothes there. So there still is that opportunity. So yes, I love that. So your hometown grid is good. That's a great way to tie it all in. But I just appreciate that part of it, is that we're bringing back some of that feeling of when we were able to shop here in town. We still buy our lumber here, and you can still do that. So that's what I appreciate so much. So back to ShopRite. What was I saying? You got me.
You
off
and
track.
Roger sounds like you.
Oh yeah, Roger and I work together. Roger, sorry about this story I'm about to tell, but it's your fault. Yes, Roger and I we worked third shift, stocking groceries, and a few other guys. And Roger taught us at that time. Oh God, I'm so sorry, Roger. Roger taught us at that time some little tricks you could do with the time card to make sure, like, maybe you get an extra 15 here on the backside, extra. Anyway, and like, oh, all right. Everybody picked up on that. Well, then Roger got promoted. Roger got to be an assistant manager at the time, or whatever his title was. I don't remember. And then we had a meeting, and Roger said, all right, there'll be no overtime. We're going to watch these clocks. I'm like, dude, who are you talking to? you showed me how to do it. He's like, shut up and just don't tell anybody. All right. No, Roger was a great boss. He was great to work with, and I love you, Raj. And he has 40 plus years in at ShopRite. Isn't that, wow, that's just amazing. Hard to think that I worked there 35 or so years ago, or maybe even more. No, it was about 40 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Phew.
Yeah, time just flies by.
Flies. Yeah.
So you're just part-time police officer?
Okay, that's where we were. Part-time police officer. Wow.
Swing it back. Turn it back. I got to get the full story here. I thought you were just like I said, just doing a night beat here and there. But
no, well, so I did the part-time. So I worked some regular like shifts during the week. You pick up shifts whenever someone called in for the full-timers. Yeah. I had a thought of working full-time at Vasser, but in between all that, I got a career job. So as I'm working this career job, I was still able to work my part-time police job. And even while I was coaching and doing some of the other things, I still worked as a police officer. So some of that is very visual. You see cops out during the day, or maybe a parade, or what are some other things you see cops. But it's when you don't see the guys. So it's the night shift. It's some of the things that we were in some houses every day that otherwise you wouldn't have seen. So
I'm sure there's, we haven't had a police officer yet on on our podcast, but I mean, there's got to be good and bads. I mean, whether you pull into somebody you know or pull somebody over you know and be like, "Hey, Roger." Remember that
I'm
time?
not supposed to talk about Roger's criminal history.
Yeah,
so
remember
I
that
won't
time
do
you
that.
said I couldn't, get that extra 15 minutes on my time clock? Well, today is the day, Bob.
So our chief of police, Ben Guile, great officer. I actually was hired well before he was even. I remember him when he would come in and his uniform wouldn't fit right, and he was this tall, gangly guy. Sorry, Ben. And then he just blossomed, man. So we had some great stories of Ben and I working some shifts together, and he even caught the tail end of some of these older officers. And let me just say a few names out here because some folks will appreciate this. So Jim Smith, my very first shift, I worked with Jim Smith, Jim Wilson, Bob Morley, Gary Shercott. These are the folks that I learned from or learned some things from. And some of my first shifts were these great, just the OG police officers. Let's just go with that route. But anyway, so Ben grew up with the police department too, and blossomed into the leader that he is now on the police department. So yeah, I stuck with the part-time work because again, I had a different career job, and it worked out well for my life and my schedule and my children and so on. But I still stayed connected to the police department. I'm still connected to it today. Like for instance, we have the 30th annual pumpkin roll coming up. So I was part of the very first one, and then the next 29 of them. And I'll never forget when we first started this, Chief Horwath, John Horwath. Yeah, I forgot to mention John. Sorry, John Horwath thought, all these kids are rolling pumpkins down the hill, and what we'll do is we'll make it an event. And it for the most part, stopped the tomfoolery from these kids rolling pumpkins down the hill. So, but what he made us do, I'll never forget this or forgive him, but he made us hold the barrels at the end, all these rookie cops. So here's these rookie cops, myself included, holding the barrels as these pumpkins are flying by at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We're dodging pumpkins and whatever. It cost 30 years ago, it cost 25 cents to roll a pumpkin and 25 cents to buy a pumpkin. Today is 25 cents to roll a pumpkin and 25 cents to buy a pumpkin. So that hasn't changed. I think that's really cool. It's not about the money so much. It's about the activity. It's a great family event, and now it's a community event. And I don't think, at least I haven't seen this in any other communities. I think it's kind of unique to Vasser, and I love that about it.
Yeah, I don't know too many other communities that are...
Well, I know there's a lot of communities with hills.
Yeah.
And when you look at Vasser's hill, it's about the smallest hill in the world, but it's everything to us. We used to sled down it. We had the Chill on the Hill, and that was a great event. We don't have snow anymore, but Chill on the Hill and some races. We used to race the cars down the hill, and of course the pumpkin roll. So that's unique.
You got a pretty busy schedule in your life here. So what's your personal life look like? You're married.
I am. So I'm married
kids,
to
a dog. I know you got a dog because
Yeah.
I see you walk your dog to work.
Yeah. So a couple of dogs. So I'm married to Courtney Pepler. Courtney and I have been married now it'll be 12 years in a couple of weeks. I have two children, Nolan and Paige. So Nolan lives over in Grand Rapids. He's a young man who's just being really successful for himself right now. And my daughter Paige is in Royal Oak, but she's going to move to Chicago here in a couple of weeks. She's engaged to a great guy, Trevor. So my kids were born and raised right here in Vasser. Went to Vasser Public Schools. My daughter did go to a parochial school for high school, kind of a residential parochial school, seminary over in Vasser. But otherwise, again, all of her friends are from this area growing up. So we live right here in Vasser. Courtney and I, we do a lot of activities together. So we are beekeepers, for instance. We're hobbyist beekeepers. So we've done that for quite a few years now, have several hives in the backyard. We like to ride motorcycles. So I have a Harley and have had one for 30 plus years. So we do enjoy going riding. We golf together. We like to go camping. Courtney is very much into nostalgic vintage things. So pretty much everything in our house is vintage, including our camper and some vehicles that we have. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And really, I think Courtney and her business partner be a great. So Courtney is she's a therapist, mental health therapist, and she specializes in trauma, especially with children. She does work with all ages, her clients. Her and her partner, Amy Sember. So it's Pepler and Sember is the business, and they just do an amazing job. So they're 2 nationally certified trauma therapists, which there aren't very many in this United States, and we have 2 right here in Vasser. And they literally have a waiting list, and why they're building and growing and hiring therapists now, because they just their schedules are crazier than mine, much crazier than mine. And they're both much smarter than me, and really enjoy watching what they can do for folks. You know, it's a popular trend. It's going to do nothing but grow mental health therapy and mental health services. Very much needed, and finally, it's not so much a stigma to say, "Hey, you know what? I talked to a counselor, or I talked to a therapist, or I have some problems."
Yeah,
and we can talk about it. And now it seems like it's a little easier to talk about it. It's not, it's not 100% there, but at least I'm noticing too that even with students at Link Learning, they're willing to open up and talk about it a little bit, and that's okay. And I think that's the big message. It's all right.
It's all right.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything you've done in our community and continue to do in our community and your involvement. And we wish you the best at Link Learning, and hopefully you get to move soon and expand your branch, and wish you the best. And I'll be right next door, so if you need anything.
Yes, and thank you for doing these. I hope you just continue this, and I really do appreciate everyone that you spotlight really deserves it. And I look forward to all the next ones coming up. Well, not so much this one, but some of the other ones coming up. And it's really good for our community. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks again.